Hi, Masood here from 2011 Woodworking and welcome to my channel. I made a video a few weeks back talking about how I assembled this table saw. The video was shot in March when I bought this table saw, but I just released it a few weeks back, and today is end of December, almost January 2024. What I have been using this saw for a good 6-7 months, and what I have not done till now is actually go through the process of seeing whether everything is aligned, calibrated, check the alignments, fix any problems that might be there, and align everything properly. I have never ever done that. So I thought I had some downtime today and thought, hey, why don't I do just that today? And I thought it would be a good idea to record so that you can see what I am doing, how I'll be fixing the problems if there are any, or I can also explain how to fix few things. I am hoping to get out in this video is to show what the problems could be, where the problems could be, and what you could be doing to solve them. Here are some of the tools that I'll be using to calibrate and align my table saw. First off, a line kit digital indicator gauge. This is the tool I rely on for precise blade alignment with the tabletop. If you don't have one, a combination square is a great backup option. Next is my digital angle finder, essential for accurately setting those 90 and 45 degree stops. Now let's talk about my machinist square. It's critical for ensuring all alignments are perfectly accurate. If you don't have one, a combination square can fill in. Moving on to the tools specific to my table saw. First I have my Phillips head screwdriver, then the Allen keys, and the 13mm wrench and socket. Let's go ahead and start calibrating the saw. Before we begin, let's make sure your saw is turned off and unplugged. The way we will go about measuring any deviation is by using an A-line kit with a digital gauge in it. The way we do it is we mark a teeth with a Sharpie. That teeth will be our reference. We measure the distance from the measuring gauge on that teeth from the one side, and we rotate the teeth to the other side, and we measure the distance from the miter gauge to the other teeth. If there are any deviations, it could be either positive or negative. Positive meaning the blade is tilted towards the miter gauge, negative meaning the blade is tilted or misaligned on the opposite side. And if there are any misalignments, we will go ahead and correct them. The way we will be aligning our table to the motor is by loosening these 4 screws that I have on my table saw. We will loosen only 3 of them and have one acting as a pivot screw, and then we can slightly move the tabletop and make any adjustment to make sure it's all aligned. So what my dial indicator is telling me is the blade is actually in this direction, so it's tilted towards the left. I can confirm by just see how this needle is moving in the opposite direction. So what I need to do is to bring the table, which is like this, to like this. So it's like this right now, so I need to bring it like this. The way I will do it is I have loosened these 3 bolts, one right here, one here, and one here, and I'll just hit it on this direction so that the table turns. And I'll keep on measuring. I'll see if this is the correct one. No, it's going the other way. So what I'll do is I'll hit here, and right now it's reading 0, but we are not done. What we'll now do is we will go back to our original position. Again, the dot that we marked on the blade is crucial, and I'll again set the dial to 0. Yes, it's 0, and I'll measure it again now. it's still not good. So I'll go ahead and hit it few more times. You just have to do trial and error. You just have to. Now again, I'll go back to my starting position and I'll zero it out. And then again, I'll measure. Now this time, it's completely aligned. So the 0 reading here is also reading 0 here. So that means right now the table is aligned. So now I can go about tightening the bolts. The way I will do that is I'll tighten it using hand, all 3 bolts, measure it, see if any corrections are needed. If so, do the corrections and tighten 1 bolt completely using the wrench, measure it, hit it few more times if needed, tighten the 2nd bolt, measure it, then tighten the 3rd bolt. It's a lot, I know, but this is something that you do it once and it will be perfect every single time. So let's go ahead and start doing that. You see how the dial indicator is on 0. See how where we land. So I'll move it to the other side and it's still reading 0. So this is perfectly aligned. So the next thing we'll do is we'll make sure that the fence is 90 degree to the table, and then we'll check that first. So I'll bring my fence here, I'll lock it down, and I'll take my machined square and I'll place it on the table. And what I am looking for are there any gaps? The camera may not be picking it up. Let me see if I can zoom in and show you how to focus this. Yes. So you can see there is slight gap. I'm holding my camera, so don't mind. Apologies for the shakiness, but there is a slight gap. At the bottom, I don't see any light, but as I travel forward, I can see light. And let me just zoom out a bit. Yep. So the way we do it is there are 2 screws on either side of the saw, and now my saw is slightly tilted in this direction. So if this is the square, I'm exaggerating here, but my fence is like this. So I want to bring it so that it moves towards this. So one way of thinking is it's slightly raised on this side compared to this side. The way I will go about doing it is I will lower this side so that it starts, or sorry, I'll raise this side so that no, if I raise this, then it will tilt even more further on this side. So I'll go ahead and lower it so it starts coming here. It will all make sense. So let me just place my camera and we'll get started. So these screws can be operated by Allen wrench. So I'll make sure the fence is locked, and I will take my Allen key and I'll start raising it. And I don't know whether camera can pick it up. I'll see. Let me zoom in. So I'm tightening this now, and as you can see, the gap is increasing. So it means we have to do it in the opposite direction. So let me just exaggerate it a bit. You see how much gap there is now? So let me start. start again, do it in very small increments. I think we are almost there. Yep, looks perfect. Now let me go ahead and lock the fence. Make sure there is no light coming through. Yeah, this looks perfect. So okay, so the next thing we will do is we'll make sure that the fence is actually aligned against this miter slot. I'll be using again the dial gauge indicator. You could also do the same thing with the combination square. Again, this is much more precise and gives me much more information. For my fence, I would need an Allen screw. There are two bolts. I'll show it in a minute. But what I would like to do is I'll keep my dial indicator in this position, and we are only worried about the fence position to be perfectly calibrated from this position, that is from the start to around a little bit beyond the starting of the blade, to somewhere around that. We are not too bothered about whether the fence is actually perfectly calibrated to miter slot from this position on. Just make sure it's not coming towards the blade. If it's going away from the blade, it's perfectly fine. Let me just go to the 10-inch mark, and I'll make sure it's 0, and I'll move it. Oh, my fence is not at all aligned. I don't know. I have two screws, two screws here, one here, and the one here, one on the other side, and that controls how the alignment is done. Now, since my fence is moving in this direction, I need to bring it towards the blade. So that means I have to tighten this screw so that it applies pressure in this direction and the fence moves towards the blade. So what we will do is we will make small tiny adjustment, keep measuring it, turn the Allen screws like quarter of a turn, check it again, and pretty sure the alignment will be perfectly fine. Next we'll check whether our blade is actually 90-degree to the table. I'll use a digital angle finder to measure it. I'll set it to 0 on the table and then attach it to the blade and see whether it's reading 0 degree or not. If it reads 0, then that means we are exactly 90 degree to the table. If not, we have to go ahead and align it. My blade was not set at exactly 90 degrees, so I'm going ahead and removing the nuts that are holding my engine cover, which will give me access to the inside so that I can go ahead and modify the set screws which control the stop block for 90 degree. And here's the inside of my cabinet. As you can see, there are these two set screws which control the stop block. What I need to do is loosen them so that I can set the precise 90-degree angle, then tighten it to that point. Again, this is a very slow process. You do some adjustment, you go ahead and measure it, take your time with it. You have to keep on setting it, measuring it. Just make sure that once you are at 90 degree, you tighten it, measure it, make sure it's at 90 degree, and then completely tighten it, measure it, make sure it stays at 90 degrees, and then do not ever touch it again. Once you're happy with 90 degree angle, go ahead and adjust your 45 degree stop to, and then let's go ahead and do a test cut. Now that we have cut it to 3 inches, let's go ahead and measure it. turn my caliper on, it's showing me 0. So go ahead and put it between these two, and I'm measuring 295. 2.950. Okay, good. Now let's try the other side. Do you see that? 2952. This is as precise as you could get. We are seeing a deviation in 1,000th of an inch. So there you go. So that is how you go ahead and calibrate your table saw. Well, there you go. Hope things were quite clear, things were helpful. If you find any value, please do like this video, comment on it with any questions, do subscribe and ring the notification bell. Again, if you have any questions about the whole process, do leave a comment. I'll go through all the comments, I'll reply as to my best of knowledge, and hope you have a wonderful day and happy New Year.